this lesson over with. Can anyone suggest a girl who changed the world? Yes, Tuan. Be quiet, Tuan, thought Ming, exasperated. Brothers, especially twin brothers, especially Tuan, who thought he knew everything about history just because they'd both read all Dad's textbooks from when he did history as well as engineering at uni. Tuan liked the kind of movies where the pirates wore shiny leather boots. Pirates never wore shiny boots at sea because they'd have slid off the deck in the sloppy droppings of the animals ships had to take to sea just so people could survive. Ming imagined Tuan sliding off the deck in sloppy goat droppings. Tuan flashed a grin at Ming. It's a stupid question, sir. Girls couldn't change the world back then. Women didn't even get the vote till last century. Girls in the past stayed at home or were servants or dairymaids and stuff. This is revenge, thought Ming. Last night she'd caught Tuan watching that movie where the Americans captured the German Enigma code machine months before the US entered World War II. And he hadn't even noticed they got it wrong till Ming had pointed it out to everyone in the boarding house. Mr. Bors nodded absent-mindedly. Exactly. Now everyone turn to page 45. Tuan sent Ming another grin. The same grin she sometimes saw in the mirror. Just like she and Tuan both had Dad's Chinese-Vietnamese face shape and hair, but blue eyes that had probably come from some Viking ancestor of Mum's. Not that their mum had been around long enough to ask her. Ming gazed around. Wasn't anyone going to come up with a suggestion? But the class were turning to page 45, except for Kayla, who was still texting, and Karuna, who'd decided to balance his history book on his head. And the problem was, Tuan was probably right. Even if he had told her to hush last week when she'd tried to tell the rest of the boarding house how Mel Gibson shouldn't have worn a tartan kilt in Braveheart because tartan kilts hadn't even been invented. And blue face painting had gone out of fashion more than 1,000 years before, not to mention the white car in the background of one of the battles. How could teachers allow schools to show movies that got stuff wrong like that? Boarding school was boring school. Except for Tuan, her most interesting friends were all in books and lived at least 100 years ago. Ming shut her eyes again, trying to let the whole of time seep through her mind. She could almost smell the centuries. Oh, there were heroines and lots of queens, but had any one of them really entirely changed the world? And they'd all been a lot older than her. She focused as hard as she could. She had to find at least one girl who'd changed the world. Brothers, said someone with loathing just behind her. Tuan's okay, said Ming absent-mindedly. At least Tuan didn't call her Princess Nerd. She blinked. Who'd said that? Suddenly she realised the class was silent. No scuffling shoes, no droning voice. Even the traffic no longer muttered in the distance. Kayla's fingers had stopped, and the book toppling from Karuna's head seemed suspended forever. Tuan was studying page 45, even though he knew what was on it just as well as Ming did. Ming looked around. The woman sitting on the windowsill just behind her seemed tall, though she wasn't, and old and young, and both close and very far away. Her skin seemed more gold than tan, and she wore a long purple garment and purple joggers and held a mauve umbrella over her long silver hair. And Ming knew her, even though they'd never met before. This woman had been with her, sensed but not seen, every time Ming imagined the past. Your history? What am I saying? She thought desperately. This couldn't be happening. History's my brother, the silver-haired woman sighed. He's okay too, just a bit too sure of himself. It's not his fault you humans only tell his side of the past. I'm her story. Ming shook her head. At her